Well, it's been a year of artists putting out new material that haven't really seen the light of day for a while. And yeah, this one kind of came onto my radar and it's got some really interesting stuff to it. So let's dive in. Rio by Trevor Rabin. So Trevor Rabin is oh boy. I think most people know him from being one of the lead guitarists from Yes back in the 80s, being on the big albums like 90125 and Big Generator, helping them out with Union, and I believe he was on Talk. I think he was on Talk. And so he really did lead the band into the 80s and, coming out with some of the big hits of the time of, Big Generator and Owner of a Lonely Heart. But yeah, I actually know him from his work as a soundtrack and score writer. And I think this is where a lot of millennials will know him as well. Like he composed and wrote the soundtracks for such monumental movies like Deep Blue Sea, Gone in 60 Seconds. You might know him from Armageddon, of all places, as well as National Treasure with Nicolas Cage. All of them, the first one, the second one, and the new TV show. The soundtrack actually dropped this year. But also Race to Witch Mountain and The Sorcerer's Apprentice and I Am 4 or Number 4. So it kind of looks like he does a lot of stuff with Jeremy Bruckheimer. Anyway, that's where I know Trevor Rabin from. Because, yeah, he did a lot of my favorite movies growing up. So, yeah, this is like his first solo record for a while. I think the first one since the 80s that actually has singing on it, because he's done a bunch of instrumental albums. I think 10 years ago. Anyway, I've never been a big fan of his time with Yes. Big Generator, 90125 and Talk were not my favorite of theirs. And I think part of it is just the legacy of Yes that was kind of keeping that at bay. And upon listening to this album, if they had released those albums under a different moniker, I probably would have liked them a little bit more because the music that's found on here is a lot of fun. That's kind of like my general summarization of this album is that it's a lot of fun. It opens up right from the get-go with one of the most fun albums of Big Mistakes, and it just has that infectious draw that those 80s albums had. It's got this big, loud sound that draws you in immediately. That's kind of Trevor's, draw as a musician. It draws you in. That's why he's used so often with a lot of his scores. And the second track also showcases his kind of ability to be a little bit more on the mellow side, especially with, the bass line that's found on this track really mimics the Chris Squire sounds. He's almost playing a better Chris Squire than a Billy Sherwood is, and he's currently in the band doing exactly that. But the other thing that I really want to highlight is Trevor's vocals, his singing. It is immaculate, if I had closed my eyes and you had told me that this was Chris Squire singing, I would have believed you, and it's so interesting why in the 80s they didn't have more 3-part harmonies with Trevor, Chris, and John in Yes, because all three of them have a very distinct and very similar singing styles in different ranges. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't have that. Then we come to probably my favorite track off the album of Oklahoma. It's a lot more soothing. It's a lot more dour, but in a very good way. It's almost like a welcome home. And I love the fact that this is almost 7 minutes and a lot of it is a big build. It's kind of reminding me of some of those bigger builds that we would get from a Yes album from Going for the One. That very gradual, very it's slowly revealing itself and slowly coming into its own. So by the time we get to the ending, we are kind of overwhelmed with how large it is. Now, I can see some people thinking that this song is a little bit more repetitive without really doing anything too different. I can see a lot of people thinking that this is a little too boring and a little bit too long. But I don't know, it itches a scratch that I have with this style of music that I really enjoy. Now, unfortunately, after that, the album starts to falter just ever so slightly. Like, Paradise is the longest track at over 7 minutes long, and I don't know if it really deserves to be as long as it is. Like, I don't know, it feels like a lot of the kind of retro prog singles that we've gotten in the past, but it's just a little too long. Like, I love the bounce, I love the fun that's on it, but if you had told me that this was a B-side from a Flying Colors record or anything else that Neil Morse has touched, or something that we would have got from like last year's 6x6 or one of those like more rockin' style of prog acts, I would have been like, yeah, that fits, that track. So I don't know, it just feels a little bit more generic on that side of things. Like, if they had shortened it up, we would have probably gotten a very much more similar track of Thandy, the fifth track, where again, it's got that drive, it's got that fun, it's got that bump that I really enjoy in this. And it's also like a really good kind of driving force till we get to my second favorite track of Goodbye, which is a little bit more of like a Southern American track. Like, it's got a little bit more of like a bluegrass style to it. It's a little bit more folk infused in that case. And I mean, this is probably my second favorite track. Like, I love how, again, I'm using the word fun, but I also just love how big the track sounds as well once we get to the chorus work. And I love the banjo that's being played on here. Very fast, very quick, very intense in that case. And I just love how like stadium rock it feels by the end of it. And then after Goodbye, I just feel like the last four tracks, Tumbleweed, These Tears, Egoli, and Toxic, are just kind of all playing around the same style that we've had before. There's not necessarily anything new that's being played on here. Like, Tumbleweed feels like it's a Moon Safari kind of ripoff, like those really rich and deep harmonies. And I'm not saying that Moon Safari has a copyright trademark from these styles of harmonizations, but like, it feels directly off of Bloomyard or Lover's End, and it's almost like a stark apparent. And I'm just salivating for the new Moon Safari track is what I'm doing with Tumbleweed. So overall, as I mentioned, the last three tracks, These Tears, Egoli, and Toxic, they're all fine. They're all fine, but they don't really add too much to the conversation. What I will say is that this album was a lot of fun. That seems to be the overall mythos, the overall flavor that I'm given. If you're looking for like a safe win for an album, this is it. Like, I can put this on and pretty much anybody would enjoy it. There's nothing really that challenges the listener. There's nothing really that like bends genres or breaks the mold in any case. But you can tell like this is somebody who's been a master of their craft and they're putting out some really, really fun work. I will say, I've been enjoying this album a lot more than the Yes album that came out this year of Mirror to the Sky. I will say, Mirror to the Sky has individual tracks that I like more than any track on here, but as a start to finish album, I would actually listen to this one first. My only real criticism is that I think it's about, as I mentioned, 3 songs too long, but that's my only real criticism. What it really did was it made me reevaluate some of his work with Yes. So I think in that case, Trevor Rabin really, really had a win. As my final rating, I will say Rio by Trevor Rabin is one that I would absolutely download. Yeah, I was surprised about this one. This one kind of came out of nowhere. I was given a promotional copy and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a spin. I'm not a big fan of Trevor Rabin's work with Yes, but I'll give it a spin. And I was pleasantly surprised. As I mentioned, I had a lot of fun with this record. So there you go. There you go. That's all I've got to say about Rio from Trevor Rabin. What did you guys think about this record? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. Because I think that's all I got for you guys today. That's all I got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.